Hitting the Road, a Magi Dawn bonus epilogue by Andrew Dobell. The Red Monastery, Tibet. It's beautiful, Liz said, a hint of awe lacing her words. Amanda sat on the small stone bench beside her, looking out over the grand vista of the Himalayan mountain range. The snowy peaks jutted through the soft clouds that hugged their slopes. Amanda felt at peace here. She hoped Liz did too. Behind them, the monastery and the monks that lived there went about their day-to-day lives, training in their martial arts, studying, meditating, and living a frugal life, free from the distractions of the modern world and the war between the Arcadian and nomad Magi. To be sure, Amanda agreed. I'm glad we came here. I needed this, Liz replied. We knew you did. That's why Gentlewater suggested it. He's such a lovely man. Amanda nodded. He's been great, so he has. The father I never had, in many ways. And he found you in Ireland? Yeah, it was after I moved back from New York. My friend was there until she passed. He found me a few weeks later. Thank you for everything, Liz said. There's no need to thank me, Liz. After what you've been through, it's the least I could do. I just want you to get through this. Liz nodded, but didn't reply. I know it's hard. I've lost people too, but it does get easier. Amanda reassured her. I don't want to forget them, Liz answered, her voice choked with emotion. Amanda reached out and pulled her in, wrapping her arms around her. You won't. You'll never forget. They'll always be with you, forever. But it will get easier. You'll be able to live your life again, I promise. Liz cried, great big heaving sobs that racked her body. Amanda just held her. She shed a couple of tears of her own as she remembered Georgina and how frail she'd been in those final days. How helpless. How she'd wasted away to almost nothing. She remembered how useless she'd felt, sitting there, holding her friend's hand as her life faded away. She thought of Stuart as well, and the sudden, violent end to his life at the hands of Horlak. That was 2 years ago now, but in many ways, it felt like another life entirely. So much had changed since then that she wasn't sure she was the same person she'd been back in New York. The world seemed to have changed. It was filled with so much more wonder and mystery now. Danger, too. Liz shifted in her arms. She hoped that Liz would feel better soon. She'd be here for her, help her through this loss, and introduce her to this world of magic and mystery. But all in good time. There was no rush. Time passed, and Amanda walked Liz back to her room and left her there to sleep. As she stepped back outside, she found Gentlewater waiting for her, looking into the room with sadness in his eyes. How is she? He asked, concerned. She's okay. She just needs time and space. Gentlewater nodded. She'll get that here, so thanks for bringing us, she continued. Yes, no problem. My pleasure. How was Paris? Gentlewater nodded. Good. Everyone ask about you and Liz, Gentlewater said in his Chinese-accented, broken English that Amanda found so endearing. Amanda nodded. She didn't like leaving the Legacy house so soon after arriving. The people and even the building itself were fascinating, but she knew she had to put Liz first. It was the right thing to do. In fact, I have offer from Zine and Orion for you. Oh? Amanda asked. Yes. They ask if you want to go on mission with them, hunting nomads. Oh, really? Are they jealous they missed out on the train? She asked with a smile. I don't know. Maybe. You interested? Hell yeah, sounds like fun. Gentlewater smiled. You want to go now? Yeah. What about Liz? Amanda asked, looking back at the door to Liz's room, suddenly worried about leaving her. I stay. Look after Liz. You go. Well, if you're sure. Of course. Liz, not mind. Amanda nodded. She'd left her with gentle water before, so it wouldn't be the first time. Okay, deal. So, how do I get back to Paris? I have portal waiting, come, gentle water urged her, and led her along the path to his quarters. Inside, using her etheric sight, Amanda could see the swirling luminous mists of essentia that had been shaped into an oval on the far wall, and the flux magic that suffused the energy, creating a portal. Gentle water smiled and waved his hand towards the magic. You're sure you're going to be okay with Liz? She asked. Yes, we be okay. But only go if you want to. No one forcing you, Amanda. She nodded. I know, I'm just worried about her. I understand. I watch her. Promise. Amanda nodded and turned to the portal. With a deep breath, she stepped into the magic, letting it wash over her and pull her through. For a second, there was a powerful feeling of dislocation. She didn't know which way was up or down, and it felt like she was about to fall to the floor, only for it to pass in the next instant, as she found herself stood in the basement of the Legacy house. It was the same large operations room she'd seen just a few weeks ago, before they'd boarded the train to fight the Inquisition. Sat nearby, next to the wall with all the monitors on it, she spotted Zane and Miller chatting. They both looked up as the magic from the portal flared and deposited her onto the floor. Zane smiled and jumped up from his chair to walk over. You came. Excellent. Of course, I heard you were jealous about missing out on the fight with the Inquisitors. Zane laughed. I guess so. I don't like missing the action. What were you doing that day, anyway? Routine mission against some nomads, I think. We do a lot for the Legacy and the various covens in Europe dealing with the nomads. We do jobs for the Council too. The Magi Council. Yeah, we keep pretty busy. Sounds like it. So, what did you have in mind for me? Raven said you did a great job on the train, held your own well. Amanda felt herself flush slightly at the mention of Raven complimenting her. I guess, she replied as nonchalantly as she could. Good. Well, we have a nomad to take down and thought you might like to help out? Sounds good, Amanda replied, trying not to sound too eager. Excellent, follow me, he said, and led her through a wide door in the wall to her right, that led into another room that was easily double the size, if not more. A row of cars lined both sides of the long room. There was everything from common hatchbacks and saloons to sleek supercars, and several dangerous-looking hypercars with custom paintwork. Oh my God. Wow, this is amazing, Amanda exclaimed in wonder. Yeah, we have a bit of a collection. You're not kidding. You see anything you like? Someone else asked. Amanda turned to see Orion, Zane's friend and mission partner for the Legacy house. He stood to one side, beside several motorbikes that were lined up against the wall. Oh, well, now you're talking, Amanda said. Hi, Orion. You like bikes? Zane asked. Yeah, love them. I had a friend in New York, Howie. You'd like him. He had a bike and spent day after day tinkering with it. I used to sit with him and chat while he worked. I picked up a thing or two from watching him. Do you ride? Amanda nodded. I do. He taught me that too. Zane glanced up at Orion, and Amanda noticed a flicker of essentia pass between them, letting her know that they were speaking to each other using a mental link. All right, Zane said a second later. Let's do this on bikes then, if you're game. Oh yeah, I'm game. That would be awesome. You'll need to pick one, Zane said, gesturing to the row of them. Amanda swept her eyes over the assembled machines and appraised them with a critical eye. They're all very nice. They certainly are, Zane agreed. What are you going to do if she picks yours? Orion asked Zane, mirth in his voice. Well, we'll see if that happens, won't we? He replied. But Amanda could hear the slight tinge of worry that colored his tone. Before her, Orion stepped up beside a matte black superbike and swept his hands over it, showing it off to her. "This one is particularly nice." "Shut it, you," Zane blurted out. Amanda laughed and then turned to Zane. "When's this mission? When do we leave?" "Not for a couple of hours, at least," he answered. Amanda nodded. "Good. So, where's the nearest Honda dealer?" Amanda walked in through the glass door, having spotted the bike she was interested in as she'd approached the building. She turned and made a beeline for the bike, which was on a stand, raised up from the floor by around 20 centimeters. She stopped a short distance from it and smiled to herself as she took in its dynamic lines. "You like the blade, then?" Amanda turned her head to a man who was sauntering up, looking at her with an expectant smile. His grin widened as he caught her eye, and he wiggled his eyebrows. She nodded back to him. "It is a lovely bike." "It certainly is, the CBR 1000RR, or the Fireblade, as it's better known. Would you like me to tell you a little more about it?" "Oh, I know all about it. I'd just like to buy it, please." "Oh, okay. You don't want a test drive?" "No, I'm good. This is what I want." "Thank you," she said, as her mind wandered back to sitting in the garage beneath Howie's apartment block. His parking spot was in the corner of the car park, and she'd spent many happy days and nights down there with him, helping him as he worked on his own Fireblade. He loved working on it, taking bits of it apart and cleaning them or upgrading them. He'd spotted her interest in what he was doing and began to explain things to her. She'd help him, pass him tools, and eventually, he let her touch his precious bike and work on it as well. It amused her how protective of it he was. But she didn't mind, and she loved it when he took her for a ride on it. The feeling of freedom as they sped up the highway was incredible. Towards the end of her time with him, he'd even begun to teach her how to ride. She picked it up quickly, although she'd never taken a test. The bike was just one more thing she missed after he kicked her out. But seeing this gleaming, new blade on the showroom floor brought back those memories, and she just knew she had to have it. With some judicious use of magic and the conjuring of the relevant papers, she was soon wheeling a brand new Fireblade out of the back of the showroom, all ready to go. Pulling on her helmet, she climbed on and fired the machine up, giving it some revs. She smiled to herself at the feeling of power beneath her, and within seconds she was out and onto the roads, speeding along the Paris streets, back to the Legacy house. Partway back, she pulled into a side street and parked up, checking to make sure there was no one else around. As much as she loved the standard paint job on the bike, she was keen to have something a little more personal. She wanted to make an impression on the boys when she pulled into the basement of the mansion. So, with a little magic and imagination, she changed the whole look of the bike. She ended up with a red and black design, where the red faded into the black as it moved across the bike from front to back. She also conjured up some red biker leathers that she thought worked quite well with the bike's paint job. Satisfied, she set up again and was soon pulling onto the ramp at the side of the building that led down into the basement. Zane and Orion were waiting for her and whistled their appreciation for the bike as she pulled to a stop. "Nice wheels, Red," Zane complimented her. "Thanks," she answered with a wink. "I've been meaning to get myself something like this for a while." "It's beautiful. Nice paint job, too. Custom, I take it?" Amanda nodded. "But of course. So you're ready then?" "As I'll ever be," she answered as she spotted Royston walk into the garage. She climbed off the bike and hung her helmet off the handlebars. "All right. I need to make a few checks and find out where the target is. As soon as we get the green light, we'll head out." "Sound good?" Zane asked. Amanda nodded. Zane and Orion turned and made their way back to the operations center as Royston reached her. "New purchase?" he asked. "Yeah, just a little something for myself." He nodded. "Nothing wrong with that." She smiled back at the current chair of the Legacy Coven. He wasn't much taller than she was, and had a stocky build to him. "How's Liz? I heard you've moved to the Red Monastery for a while." Amanda nodded. Liz needed a little time, and the monastery is totally cut off from everything else. So it's a good place for her to be for a while. She can start to get her head around what happened without the distractions. Royston nodded his agreement. "That's good. But what about you?" "Me? What do you want to do?" "Well, I'm happy to help Liz for the moment." "And after that?" I have some ideas." That was a lie. She actually only really had one idea, and the only person she'd spoken to about it was Gentle Water. He'd said that he would likely need to talk to Royston about it, and it looked like he might have finally done that. Gentle Water spoke to me the other day. He told me about where you want to live." "I figured. So New York then?" "That's right," she agreed. "Gentle Water said he'd need to talk to you about it." "And he did." "And?" Royston sighed. "Well, I'm glad that you want to find a place to settle down. I think that's admirable. But does it have to be New York?" "Kinda. New York is home to me." "I see. Is there a problem?" "Several." "Can they be solved?" Amanda asked. "Maybe, maybe not." "Is it because it's America?" "That's part of it. The Magi don't really subscribe to riven borders. How they carve up the land for their governments is up to them, and while most of the Magi running covens have lived long enough to see borders move and change, some of that national pride does bubble up within the Magi community. The US is one of those places where patriotism to the Riven country is strong. So there could be some pushback from certain sections of the Magi community over there. They might not take kindly to a legacy magus setting up shop in their backyard, even if it is New York. "And what do you mean by that?" Amanda asked. "The national pride of the American Magi is a small problem, really, when compared to the much bigger concern of the King of New York." "It has a king? Like a magus king?" "A nomad king, actually. New York City is dominated by a powerful magus called Lucian. He's a Jamaican nomad allied with the Voodoo Queen of Haiti, and he rules New York with an iron fist. He won't like an Arcadian moving into his city." "Ah, I see. Think long and hard about what you want to do, because while it's not impossible, it could be very dangerous for you to move to New York." Amanda nodded. "I understand," she answered, as a mess of chaotic thoughts bubbled up in her mind at the revelation. She'd lived in New York before becoming a magus for over a year, and it felt more like home to Amanda than almost anywhere else, apart from maybe the cottage in Ireland. She loved that cottage, but she loved New York more. "Look, don't worry about it right now. Let me make some inquiries and see what I can find out. I'm not saying you can't move there, I'm just saying you might need to be careful." "Of course," she answered. "Look, don't worry. I'm fairly sure you can do anything you put your mind to." "Hey, Red," Zane called out from the other end of the garage. She looked up to see him and Orion climbing onto their bikes. She looked back at Royston. "Gotta go." "I know. Forget about what I said. We'll find a way to make it work, all right?" "To be sure," she answered. She swung her leg over her bike and pulled her helmet back on as engines fired up, the roar of them echoing around the room. Royston backed off as Zane and Orion pulled out into the central gap and raced up the length of the garage. Amanda gunned the engine of her Blade, and with a wink to Royston, she wheel-spun on the spot to swing around before releasing the front brake and shooting off after the other two, out onto the open road. The end. This was Hitting the Road, a Magi Dawn bonus epilogue by Andrew Dobell. Copyright 2023 to Andrew Dobell. Audio copyright 2023 to Andrew Dobell. Be sure to find more titles by the author at andrewdobellauthor.co.uk.